Quotation marks. Writers use quotation marks primarily to enclose direct quotations of another person's spoken or written words. You will also find these other uses and exceptions for quotation marks, for quotation within quotations, for titles of short works, for words used as words, with other marks of punctuation, with brackets and ellipsis marks, no quotation marks for indirect quotations, paraphrases, and summaries, and no quotation marks for long quotations. Use quotation marks to enclose direct quotations. Direct quotations of a person's words, whether spoken or written, must be written in quotation marks. So quotation mark Twitter, according to social media researcher Jameson Brown, is the best social network for brand to customer engagement. In dialogue, begin a new paragraph to mark a change in speaker. Mom, his name is Willie, not William. 1,000 times I've told you, it's Willie. Willie is a derivative of William, Lester. Surely his birth certificate doesn't have Willie on it, and I like calling people by their proper names. Yes, it does, ma'am. My mother named me Willie K. Mason. If a single person utters more than one paragraph, introduce each paragraph with a quotation mark, but do not use a closing quotation mark until the end of the speech. Exceptions. Do not use quotation marks around indirect quotations. An indirect quotation reports someone's ideas without using that person's exact words. In academic writing, indirect quotation is called a paraphrase or a summary. Social media researcher Jameson Brown finds Twitter the best social media tool for companies that want to reach their customers. Exception: long quotations. Long quotations of prose or poetry are generally set off from the text by indenting. Quotation marks are not used because the indented format tells readers that the quotation is taken word for word from the source. After making an exhaustive study of the historical record, James Horan evaluates Billy the Kid like this. The portrait that emerges of Billy the Kid from the thousands of pages of affidavits, report, trial transcriptions, his letters, and his testimony is neither the mythical Robin Hood nor the stereotyped moron and pathological killer. Rather, Billy appears as a disturbed, lonely man, honest, loyal to his friends, dedicated to his beliefs, and betrayed by our institutions and the corrupt, ambitious, and compromising politicians of his time. The number in parentheses is a citation handled according to MLA style. And MLA, APA, and CMS all have different guidelines for what constitutes a long quotation. Use single quotation marks to enclose a quotation within a quotation. Megan Marshall notes that Elizabeth Peabody's school focused on quotation mark, not merely teaching quotation mark, but quotation mark, educating children morally and spiritually as well as intellectually from the first. Quotation mark. Use quotation marks around the titles of short works. Short works include newspapers and magazine articles, poems, short stories, songs, episodes of television and radio programs, and chapters or subdivisions of books. Jane Baldwin's story, quotation mark, Sunny Blues, quotation mark, tells the story of two brothers who come to understand each other's suffering. Titles of long works such as books, plays, television and radio programs, films, magazines, and so on are put in italics. Quotation marks may be used to set off words used as words. Although words used as words are ordinarily italicized, quotation marks are also acceptable. Be consistent throughout your paper. The term quotation mark migrant quotation mark and quotation mark refugee are frequently confused. The terms migrant and refugee, both in italicized, the italicized migrant and italicized refugee, are frequently confused. Use punctuation with quotation marks according to convention. This section describes conventions American publishers use in placing various marks of punctuation inside or outside quotation marks. It also explains how to punctuate when introducing quoted material. Place periods and commas inside quotation marks. Quotation mark. I'm here as part of my service learning project, comma, quotation mark. I told the classroom teacher, quotation mark, I'm hoping to become a reading specialist, quotation mark, or period first, then the quotation mark. This rule applies to single quotation marks as well as double quotation marks. It applies to all uses of quotation marks for quoted material, for titles of works, and for words used as words. In the MLA and APA styles, parenthetical in-text citations, the period follows the citation in parentheses. James M. McPherson comments approvingly that the Whigs were not averse, quotation mark, that the Whigs were not adverse to extending the blessings of American liberty, comma, even to Mexicans and Indians, quotation mark, then parentheses, 48, another parentheses, and at the very end of everything, the period. Colons and semicolons. Put colons and semicolons outside quotation marks. Harold wrote, quotation, I regret that I am unable to attend the fundraiser for diabetes research, quotation mark. And then comma, his, was it a semicolon. His letter, comma, however, comma, came with a substantial contribution. Put question marks and exclamation points inside quotation marks unless they apply to the whole sentence. Dr. Abrams' first question on the first day of class was, what 3 goals do you have for the course? Question mark, quotation. Have you heard the old proverb, do not climb the hill until you reach it, quotation mark, and then question mark. In the first sentence, the question mark applies only to the quoted question. In the second sentence, the question mark applies to the whole sentence. In MLA and APA styles for a quotation that ends with a question mark or an exclamation mark, the parenthetical citation and a period should follow the entire quotation. So introducing quoted material. After a word group, introducing a quotation, choose a colon, a comma, or no punctuation at all, whichever is appropriate. If a quotation is formally introduced, a colon is appropriate. A formal introduction is a full independent clause, not just an expression, such as he writes or she remarked. Thomas Friedman provides a challenging yet optimistic view of the future. We need to get a quotation. Thomas Friedman provides a challenging yet optimistic view of the future, colon, quotation mark. We need to get back to work on our country and on our planet. The hour is late, the stakes couldn't be higher, comma. The project couldn't be harder, comma. The payoff couldn't be greater, quotation mark, and then parentheses 25 and a period. If a quotation is introduced with an expression such as he writes or she remarked, or it is followed by such an expression, a comma is needed. When a quotation is blended into the writer's own sentence, either a comma or no punctuation is appropriate, depending on the way in which the quotation fits into the sentence structure. If a quotation appears at the beginning of a sentence, use a comma after it unless the quotation ends with a question mark or an exclamation point. I've always thought of myself as a reporter, comma, quotation. American poet Gwendolyn Brooks has stated, 162 parentheses, and then the period is at the end. If a quoted sentence is interrupted by explanatory words, use commas to set off the explanatory words. If 2 successive quoted sentences from the same source are interrupted by explanatory words, use a comma before the explanatory words and a period after them. Everyone agrees, journalists must tell the truth. Quotation, comma, quotation mark. Bill Kovac and Tom Rosenthal write, period. Yet, quotation mark, people are befuddled about what the truth means. 37, and then parentheses, and then the period comes at the very end. Avoid common misuses of quotation marks. Do not use quotation marks to draw attention to familiar slang, to disown trite expressions, or to justify an attempt at humor. Do not use quotation marks around the title of your own essay. And that's it for quotation marks. And so if you have any questions about quotation marks, feel free to email me at any time. And if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the Professor H Writing channel.